Oh, so the artist gave a talk. Him and his friend were talking. What was it? What the conversation? It kind of went
different ways.
Depending
on what woman.
Yeah. So what was that? So while they were talking, there was a lady who spoke up in the back and said, "I had my hand up before him."
Yeah.
And and then from there, she would not let anyone speak. Almost, she was like just commanding the room with her voice and kept talking over.
I felt like it was her like Maxine Waters moment, and she was reclaiming time. Like she was reclaiming her space-time continuum.
Yeah, I remember the moment where one woman asked a question about. She was like, my child is an artist, and so I'd like your perspective about that. And the other woman was like, I have an opinion.
What was the question that was asked, and then what was the answer that was
the question was, as the parent of an artist, how can I support them to have a career and not just and to like actually pursue being an artist as a life and a livelihood. And David and his friend, his name I've forgotten, and I feel bad about, they gave an answer. But then also the woman who had kind of like been piping up was like, she was like, you should just let them. She almost kind of corrected the woman's question. It was like, that's not the right way to think about it. But I think I don't know. It was an interesting moment. I feel like any Q&A I've ever been to, there is always one person who's like, this is not a Q&A. This is
my time.
Yeah.
I feel like anytime I looked back at her, I knew that she was trying. She just needed she just needed to be heard. You know what I mean? And she's like, I came over here. I supported you by buying $2. You know, this is my time to be heard. And
yeah. I get that to an extent. Sometimes I get I get worked up because we were talking about real stuff. He was talking about real stuff, like real issues. Yeah. And anytime there's something real on the table, sometimes I can get a little worked up and then pipe in a little too much. So maybe that happened to her a little bit. She just cared too much.
Yeah. I saw myself in her because I will be her when I'm older. I already know it, because like if something is like matters to me enough, and like younger me in that moment, you know, I'm a mom, so whenever someone talks about children, I like my immediate, and I guess it's not even in my mom voice, it's really in the like, I feel like I'm a child, is like, you know, like I think like one, and so I'm always like, what's in the most vulnerable person's best interest, and like never discount them. And even though this guy was so cool and he like drew for Coco, I'm like, yo, like when I started seeing the red line of like using our babies as like a punchline or just a minor, he didn't even do like, he was just kind of like, oh, those knuckleheads, like my red, there was like I saw red. And that's when I was just like, hey, let's think about like what they really experience out in the battlefield called life. You know?
And you asked a question. You did say something. You did speak up.
Yeah, I had to.
Yeah.
It was really like important to me because I needed them to know. I needed to know, like, what are you guys doing in this like climate that we're in? Where Orange Man exists, and really it's profitable to draw him and speak of him. So what do we get to do as artists to work against that and really shine a light on people that are vulnerable, you know? And
that makes me, this is not exactly on topic, but I just read this article in the New York Times, and I have been trying to decide what I think about it. It's the story of this guy who lives in Ohio, and he is he's like white, he's in his 40s, He used to work in tech, but now he's like back home in Ohio and is like retired. And he totally cut out all news and like media of his life and won't allow people to tell him about Trump or anything that he's been up to. And I thought it was so fascinating because on the one hand, I was like, great, yeah, absolutely, I get that. It's like the emotional energy of processing the news every day is very exhausting. And so like, but to resign from life totally is like, I guess like what a huge privilege for him that he can. I'm not mad at him that he wants to, though. It's weird. I go back and forth. I'm like, I get it, dude, but also you have to, So that's interesting in the context, I think, of this, like these cartoonists is like they have to engage with politics, but how much, like you're saying, how much space do we give like Trump and specific issues? Like satire is helpful to a point, but also at a point it's like we're still just giving a platform to a person that doesn't need any more attention.
I sometimes feel like our future selves will be the only ones to tell whether it was enough. Because I think about people who drew during the times of world wars and like with awful dictators of now and then. I feel like we look at those now and we see a lot of art and brilliance in them, and we're grateful for it. So is that what's going to happen? Like, do we appreciate it later and hate it now? And if so, again, like, who still is in the dark, not being heard? Like, whose voice is not being?
And when you say that, I feel like mine.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, yeah, shit.
Yeah. I love what you said about like the privilege of like not having to hear the news.
Yeah.
That's a privilege. I met this one chick this weekend, Stephanie, and she's from the DC area. She's a scientist in codes, but she lives in DC, and she's like, it's so hard to date. She's like, because all there are, like, the pickings are just politicians. Like the pickings are just politicians. And she's like, I don't want any more politics and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's so strange. I get it because it's DC, but it's like, I feel like it's part of our civic duty. But then I'm also the type of person that's like, middle ground. Where's the middle ground to all of this?
Well, I don't think anyone cares to find the middle ground, right? It's just like they're the comfortable side of the ground. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we've shifted into a very sort of complacent, like, I remember once getting on the train, and there's a lot of people that aren't usually on the train, kind of looked like it was for a protest, but it was like, or a rally or something, not quite distinguishable, but a lot of people who don't, it was like the train's more crowded than it usually is on a Saturday. And this black dude gets on the train, and he was like, damn, what did Trump do now? I was like, that. Exactly. Like, it was like the most real moment. Like, yeah, just that's where we are.
Did
like,
everyone laugh or like?
I don't know if anyone heard him. Everyone was, I think I'm the only one who like witnessed this beautiful thing that just happened. In my mind, I was like,
oh my God, that's the best.
Yeah.
That happened with the Women's March too. And I know a lot of people, especially a lot of people of color or women of color, have like a strange feeling in place about the Women's March. But that happened too. Like everyone's in the train leaving, and you see like a group of people come in just like, why are there so many people on the train now? What y'all coming from? And I'm like, I hear you. I hear you, because I felt the same way while I was there. I was like, why am I here? What am I doing here?
Did you go to the one this year?
This year, I went to the one this year because last year I was taking care of very rich white women's kids while they went to the women's march.
What?
So that I kind of was like, this year I'm like, I will be going. My brown and black self will be taking myself there. Talk nabbit.
Yeah.
Because that was so strange.
How long did you work for them or with them?
For over 2 years.
And it didn't. Okay, I have a story too, but
It was the weirdest experience.
She didn't think to like find a male friend
All their friends left their children with their brown. I think I was
that
only
is
black nannies.
How old were the kids?
They're like maybe 5 and 6. 5 and
Okay,
6.
that is pretty. Because another
They're young.
component.
Yeah,
I was like, that's pretty young. Another part of it, I was like, well,
we could have all gone.
yeah, I don't know.
We could have all
At least
gone.
to that.
For sure.
That's
But they were
insane.
like, okay, well, we're gonna go to a party afterwards. So I'm like, okay, well, you guys enjoy. Wink, wink.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
It was such a
That's-
weird.
That's
It was an internal conversation in my head of, Marian, this is the Twilight Zone, girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm struck by over the last few years. I keep seeing this like pattern of people, just people like trying to like reassure me, and like I think other white people have like this idea that like the resistance is like fun, and it's like no, it shouldn't be easy. You shouldn't get to go to a party after
And eat tacos. Because that's what we did this year. I was like, oh, this is an interesting protest.
Right.
How come there's food vendors here? And what? Because that's not what it's like in Oakland. We run from the popos. What is going on here? This has been like...
and now
yeah.
Sarah Silverman's giving a speech, and
weird.
now like Lady Gaga's singing.
was
I'm at
so-
Coachella.
like
This is
just
just
a-
Coachella.
It was so weird. I'm like, they're passing out beads. What? The police are
They
holding
just-
hands
yeah.
and they're smiling. No.
No riot gear,
No
just
riot
regular.
gear. And let me tell you, because in Oakland, we were singing too. We were singing, we shall overcome. And the police were like, nah.
No shit, yeah.
Not today. Oh, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting.
My experience, since I live right by the metro station.
Yeah, you do.
So I took the train there. I go down, and it actually wasn't. There was a long ass line of people trying to figure out how to use the machines and like how to buy tickets. And so I already had a little. My car was full, so I was like, so I won't go down. And there's not really anyone down at the bottom, but when the train comes, it's full of people, packed. So it was just me and this other girl. She was probably Hispanic, darker skin. It was just the two of us waiting to get on. We're clearly going. I think I might have had on my Black Lives Matter shirt. She probably had a sign. And the door opens, and in the front, it's mostly white guys in the front. And then behind them are older white ladies. And there was, me and this girl were about the same size. And not growing up in New York, living in New York, there's like train etiquette. You just step to the side, like you can make room. It was like they could have like gone towards the middle.
aisle.
Yeah. So we were like, you can just like go that way, and they were not hearing it. The ladies behind them were screaming like, "Get out! Go back and catch the next train! Get out!" And the dudes were just shaking their head, just like they were just like not reacting and
Train
smiling. They're just like,
etiquette.
"Sorry,
Boo.
sorry." And so, like, we were basically, like, already on. It was, like, because I think the girl's sign or bag it was still, like, not closing the door. So we're, like, basically on. So we had to get out because they were, like, literally yelling at us to get out. Screaming.
That
like
was your beginning experience.
Yes.
Hi.
Oh, wow.
What to do?
And I like almost, I still went, but that was the moment where I was like,
I should turn back.
Because I literally just got from my apartment down to that's less than a 5-minute walk.
My favorite part of the march was all the black women, because all the black women were side-eyeing everybody. Black women over 40 were like...
And rightfully so. Like, it was so good.
I was like, nah, this is the show over here. Hold on. Let me find a black woman. And the face. I could have been taking pictures. That would have been
of just black women.
Of black women and their faces. Oh, it was so good.
The iconic photo that came out of that. Do you remember the lady? She is. I think this was in maybe Washington. The black lady who's standing. I think she's just looking out, maybe towards the left, and behind her are 2 white ladies like taking selfies. And that was like, it went super viral because it was like, this is like literally how the march was, the experience of the march. Like, this picture says everything right here.
It's great.
Yeah, politics. This is the times we live in, the world we live in.
I mean, it is. Like, I'm like watching Black Mirror right now.
Okay, no.
Oh, snap. Okay.
You're trying to sneak it in.
I'm keeping my mouth shut.
Don't tell me. I still haven't seen it. I'll watch it. Okay, and then we can do a part 2 and talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there another point you can make with a different reference?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Stuff happens in life. And like Forrest, life is like a box. It's like a lot of boxes.
Do you get what she's saying?
It's like any specific kind of box. It's just like a box, like an empty Amazon box.
Yes.
Life is like a box of chocolates. You need to take direct political action.
Bite into it, and even when you don't like it,
all right, guys. So let's start to wrap it up. On that note, anything that any last words or like anything that you thought of that happened you want to talk about? Maybe.
Well, one thing I was thinking about was kind of a point that Marian already touched on, was just like how much stuff there is going on in LA. And as someone who's like not, like I didn't grow up here, it was just going to this event was such a good reminder that like, oh, there's so many, even within LA, there's so many different communities, and like I've explored some of them, but definitely not all of them. And there's so many different types of events. And I mean, you know, like my life is mostly just like going to comedy shows all the time, and that is fun, but it was just a great reminder to like step outside of my neighborhood and the like normal activities that I do, and just be like, oh, see, there's so many fun, interesting, unique things that I could be doing any given weekend. I should just do more of them.
Yes.
And you have fun stories to tell.
Exactly.
Did you see the documentary Seinfeld did a couple years ago? I think it's on Netflix. I think it's just called Comedian. Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh, no, I didn't watch that.
He was just going. It was a comparison of him rebooting his career to an up-and-coming comedian. So it was like a back and forth between that. But to get bits and routines or ideas for that, he would just go to random events at whatever town he was touring in. He would just like buy a ticket to some thing, some unusual thing, and just talk to people. And it was like really fun to like watch him do that. Like he's great at, like really good with talking to people.
Yeah.
That's such a good idea. I feel like